Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me. This is Igdalia on Their Fight Story. I have an amazing guest with us today. His name is Matt Lucas. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on the show today, Igdalia.
No, thank you so much. You are absolutely amazing. You do so much that I'm sure a lot of people know who you are, but if they don't, they will definitely know who you are.
Yeah, it's always a good thing.
Yes. How did you get into martial arts?
Yeah, so when I was 25 or so, I was working at a pub. I didn't want to go to college. I didn't really want a career. I also didn't want to drink myself to death. So I started at a gym and I started at a Muay Thai gym. And it, I went and saw a smoker, like an interclub fight.
Mhm.
I thought to myself, oh, I should try that. I tried it. I liked it. Then I was like, oh, I should go to Thailand. I've never been abroad before. It would be a good life experience. I learned some basic Thai at a Thai temple in Berkeley. And then I went to Thailand for the first time for 3 months. And I fought out here in Pattaya at Teppersit Stadium. And I went back to the States and I was like, this is good. This is a good life. This is interesting. I'm doing interesting things. Let's run with it. And that was 15 years ago.
And did you fight here in the States?
I did. I fought. I did interclubs and amateur fights. I fought about 20 times or so in total in the States, and then another dozen or so out here in Thailand.
Nice. And what was your experience with fighting here versus fighting in Thailand?
Yeah, so fighting in it's definitely culturally very, very different. A lot of people will tell you the same sort of things. Fighting in America is a lot more pressure and a lot more expectations. I think because people aren't fighting necessarily as much, there's a lot more pressure put onto this one event. And because people put a lot of money into it and a lot of emotion, it becomes a little bit more overhyped. Uh, Over in Thailand, because there's so many fights and people are doing it so often, there's a lot less pressure to not necessarily perform because people obviously want you to perform, but winning and losing isn't as big of a deal because you just fight in another month. Whereas if you're in the States, so say a pro fighter on Line Fight will only fight maybe 4 times a year if they're very active. Whereas out here in Thailand, a high level fighter will fight, 8 to 10 times a year. And that's, a decent normal amount.
Okay, when did you decide that you wanted to move from the States to Thailand? Like, what was your.
Yeah, what was sort of the impetus? I lived in the Bay Area. I lived in Oakland for about 10 years. I was going back and forth between here in the States, here being Thailand. And I was just tired of living in the States. I wanted to change. I had a long-term Thai girlfriend as well who is from Bangkok. It was a natural progression. And I wanted my life to be a little bit more interesting, so I moved over here.
More interesting than being a fighter?
More interesting than being a fighter, because being a fighter is very interesting, but in a lot of ways it's also very boring. You're doing a lot of the same things all the time, and then you do have those random moments of the fights. But especially in America, I feel like a lot of fighters, is at least in the Muay Thai world, don't necessarily have extended careers or very successful careers, because there's not a lot of infrastructure for the sport. Whereas out here in Thailand, you can have a more successful career in the sport, whether you're fighting or someone like me who is no longer fighting, but I'm a commentator,
Mhm.
journalist, sort of man about town.
Yeah, I was reading up on that. I was watching, or not watching, but I was reading like what you do, and then I saw that you were a commentator. Are you still commentating?
Right now, I am not, but I will be commentating soon at Lumpini, I think. I commentated at Max Muay-Thai, which is a stadium in Pattaya, Thailand, that had very, very regular shows. I was there for 5 years and working there 2 or 3 days a week. Because of COVID, they shut down, and I will be commentating, I think, at Lumpini in the beginning of the year. Fairtex Fight Promotions is starting, so I will be commentating there.
Nice. And when you commentate, I apologize for my ignorance. Are you commentating in English or are you speaking in Thai?
Yeah, so usually there's a set of Thai commentators and then English. So I was doing English. It was myself and another guy, Rob Cox, and we had a couple other people as well, Dorian Price, John Wolcott, Ali McOney. But primarily it was me and Rob for a long time.
What challenges have you faced being in Thailand?
Hmm. I mean, there's some logistical issues, of course. One of the big logistical ones is just visas. Migrating over here long term is not always easy in terms of visas and paperwork. It has made me a lot more empathetic towards migrants to the U.S. or other countries. So that's not always easy. It is something you can figure out, especially if you're coming from the West. Again, there's salary things. If you're living on a Thai salary, you're not making as much as you are in the West. But I would say the quality of life is a lot higher out here. People don't necessarily work as hard. It's not as much of a grind. There's a lot more room for creativity and a lot less stress. Um, I think, and then the other big issue is, I would say, culturally, it's very, very different out here. It can be lonely sometimes. Luckily, I've gotten over that. But first 2 or 3 years is very lonely till you really build a life for yourself. And getting close to people out here is different because it's such a different culture. And if you don't know the language, if you don't know
Mhm.
how things work, it's very difficult to adjust sometimes.
What was your most, I guess, the culture shock? What was the
Hmm.
biggest culture shock that you experienced when you went to Thailand?
Um, Let me think about that. Um, the like in a lot of ways, coming out here to Thailand really, really made me think about how American I am. And like, when I'm in America, I'm just like a normal dude.
Mhm.
But when I'm out here, I'm very different, and that can be highlighted a lot when I am, in areas where, like in Isan, which is up country, where there are no white people, or there are no people besides, Isan people. Um, and feeling that, I think, is a very, very important experience, especially for someone like me that doesn't wouldn't normally get out into the world a lot. So there's different expectations and assumptions that are made when you're out here that aren't made of you back in the States.
A lot of people have different perceptions of Thailand. Well,
Hmm.
you have both sides. Some people say that it's a beautiful place, and then other people who don't know it will say that, oh, no, no, you shouldn't go there. Like, it's
Hmm.
not a place you should go to. What would you advise people if they're thinking of going to Thailand?
Yeah, I would advise one that they should do it, and that in some ways, Thailand is an amazing place. It's beautiful, the food is amazing, the people are super nice. In some ways, it's like not that great. There's a lot of traffic, especially in Bangkok. There's language difficulties. There are cultural hurdles you have to overcome, but it's like anywhere in the world. There are definite pros and cons to it. And I don't think that you will know unless you experience it for yourself firsthand.
Yes.
Um, so I obviously like Thailand and it works for me. I know it won't work for everyone.
Mhm. Now, when you went to Thailand, you went as a fighter, and then you went back and you decided to live there. When
Mhm.
you started working there, um, what were you doing? Because I know you do videos. I know you do pictures. I know you work with like different promotions.
Mhm.
How did you get involved into that? And was there any like judgment? You know,
Yeah.
because you're coming from outside and
Mhm. Yeah, so my first job was at Max Muay Thai. I got that because I'd interviewed my boss, Rob Cox, years ago, and he rang me up and said, "Oh, Max wants a commentator. They want an American. Are you available?" I wasn't planning on working. I had some money saved up, but I was like, "Okay, yeah, I should take this opportunity."
Mhm.
So I started doing that once a week, and I was also training and fighting a little out of FA group in Bangkok. Um, and they asked me, oh, would you like to sort of help out and be a foreign liaison here?
Mhm.
That was after a year of working of training there, and I said sure. It was sort of a natural progression,
Mhm.
and there was definitely a lot of challenges of working there, learning how to deal with a lot of the foreigners, and it's a lot of customer service stuff,
Mhm.
um, and a lot of managing expectations for the foreigners, and then also dealing with the ties, which can be difficult because communication styles can be very different. But through Max and then FA Group, I ended up working at Fairtex, and then sort of moving on to other opportunities as well. I'm still at Fairtex, though.
Okay. And Youth Gear is part of Fairtex?
Correct. So which is part of the reason why we have met and worked
Mhm.
together, is a secondary brand of Fairtex. It is located right here at the Fairtex Training Center in Pattaya. They do a lot of the clothing and apparel for the main Fairtex brand and are expanding into equipment as well, and
Mhm.
doing more customized merchandise and apparel.
Yeah, I've seen the stuff that they've created and it's
Yeah.
so beautiful. I How are they able to just do that? Because, usually it takes longer to come up
Mhm.
and do all this, produce it and then ship it.
Mhm. Well, one, they have a massive factory. So the factory is pretty big. And two, the main owner of Sam, who you've met before, has experience in doing a lot of custom orders.
Mhm.
He comes from a t shirt custom order background. So he's used to doing like a lot of custom apparel and getting it done very quickly. So he was working with Fairtex for 3 or 4 years before you was even
Mhm.
established.
Wow, so cool. I
Yeah.
mean, like, but the bags that they had,
Mhm.
the heavy bags were
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
I was like,
Mhm.
wow. And then the shirt, seriously. And then it's like when they're promoting all these events, and it's like the gloves are personalized to that particular, state or country or whatever that's happening. It's just like how they come up with it and how they design it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and I'm very very happy and grateful to be working with such an amazing team.
How are you able to do like all the turnaround time of
Mhm.
like when you work and you're doing your videos and you're doing your pictures and you're doing your interviews and you're running here and you're running there, because not only are you doing your videos and your interviews and your
Mhm.
pictures, you're also representing a company and you
Mhm.
know what I mean. So it's like you're one guy with like five different hats on the same exact day and event, and it's just like
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I do keep a to-do list and a planner, so that helps, obviously. And it helps that, this is my passion.
Hmm.
I love what I do. I'm very grateful for what the opportunities I've been given and, my life out here. So it makes it more enjoyable.
Hmm.
Um, and also because it's my livelihood as well. So, it's a full time job for me to be doing this stuff. Um, so that makes it a lot easier as well. This is not a secondary position for
Hmm.
me. This is like my life.
Hmm.
So that makes it a lot easier to do as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you're doing something that you love and it's your passion, it just makes things
Mhm.
so much easier. It makes it
Mhm.
rewarding. It makes it just so smooth and effortless. It's a beautiful thing when you're doing what you love. Yes, certain situations become stressful because you're passionate about what you do, so you have a certain expectation that's above what other people expect. Like, yes, you met their expectations, but your expectation is higher than theirs. So it's pretty cool. Not
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, I wish more people were able to pursue their passions in the same way that I was. And
What would you advise people who are in this particular field, as being a martial artist, and they're trying to figure out what they should do, how they should go about it, like.
Mhm. Yeah, so I would advise people to, make a plan. It's not something that you need to necessarily stick to 100% because life does throw its own
Mhm.
punches and you need to adapt and roll with that. But to have some sort of outline of what you want to accomplish, and then to break it down from there. So, okay, say you want to become a Raja Demner champion. Okay, that means you need to be in Thailand. You need to be at a
Mhm.
camp that has connections to Raja Demna. You need to be fighting regularly, and then it's that progression is set up there. So you make the goal, and you work your way backwards into the necessary steps. Um, you know, I I think that you need to build a support system
Mhm.
for yourself, which means you need to support other people. Um, you don't get support from other people unless you're giving them something or helping them in some way. I think a lot of martial artists and fighters have a misconceived notion that it's an individual sport, which, yes, to some degree, you are performing for 5 or 6 minutes, or 15 minutes at most, as an individual in the ring, but you have a whole team behind you that
Mhm.
has brought you there. There's the promoter that has put on the show. There's your opponent. There's your coach. There's your cornerman. There's your sparring partner. There's all the people that bought the tickets. There's the media people. It's a huge infrastructure that has brought you to this place, and you need to acknowledge that and support that community.
Yeah. When you say working backwards, what do you mean?
Okay, like if I want to do something, you know, okay, I want to write a book. So, for
Mhm.
instance, I was like, I want to write a book. Okay, what does that mean? I need to, I basically make a list of
Mhm.
things that I need to do. Okay, I obviously need to write it. I need to write an outline. I need to write, a chapter, and then I just, do it, step by step. And
Yeah.
okay, I have all the chapters done. Okay, are they in order now? Okay, I've done that. Okay, have I done the cover? Okay, I did that. Okay, am I ready to publish it? Okay, now I've got published. Okay, now I need to market it. So you sort of make a list of steps, and then you slowly go up the
Mhm.
the pyramid or the steps to get to your goal.
I've recently heard of, fighters that are realizing that in order for them to actually make it, they really need to make this their lifestyle. They can't really be doing it 50-50. You were a fighter.
Hmm.
As a fighter, sacrificing your stuff and now interviewing and seeing these fighters that make it their lifestyle, what have you seen in comparison that has really changed when they do that?
Yeah, well, I think that, it's important to realize that for Westerners, especially, it's not a sacrifice, it's a choice. The monetarily, most fighters are not making that much money. You're certainly not making that much when you start. So you do have some sort of side income or
Mhm.
something else going on. This is a passion you want to pursue. Um, for people out here in Thailand, economically things are a bit different. It's not as much of a choice, and there's more of an economic imperative to being a fighter. So I think it's important for people to realize, like, you're not really sacrificing anything. You're making choices and you're choosing priorities. And when you view it that way, I don't feel like you're self-sacrificing
Mhm.
as much, and you can understand, like, okay, if I want to go to get to this goal, whatever it is, this fight, this championship, uh, whatever, I need to make these choices. I need to make these things a priority and not these other things. So I think, yeah, it's important to understand that. And
Mhm.
I feel it's a little bit of a better framework for people to sort of view their goals in.
Oh, that's a great point. That's a great outlook. I never really saw it that way. I always see and hear how, they're always sacrificing. And, it kind of makes me wonder now if it's that sometimes maybe they don't have the right support group, they don't have the right support team that makes it seem like they're sacrificing certain things.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean that might be true. I mean, when you're always like, "Oh, I'm sacrificing this much.
Hmm.
sacrificing. Oh, sacrifice." Like, who wants to hang out with you? Like, you're miserable all the time. Like, oh, I don't. Yeah. Like, okay, you're a nice person. Like, I'll help you out a little. But when you're always like, "Oh, woe is me. Oh, this is terrible." Like, I don't want to. I don't want to help you out. You're a sad sack. You're not fun. Like, I'm not getting anything out of this. Like, yeah, I'm glad you're doing whatever you're doing, but there's no, like, gain or
Yeah.
emotional experience for me. It's just, oh, this is all about you. Um,
Yeah.
Whereas, if you frame it differently and you're like, oh, I'm making this choice, I'm doing this thing. If you'd like to support me, that would be great. If not, that's okay. Like, I feel like that experience is,
Hmm.
and that outlook is a lot healthier.
Yeah. I love that outlook. I love it. I'm going to make sure that I point it out more often.
Yeah. I mean, I've interviewed tons of fighters, especially Westerners, and a lot of them do view it as an obligation and
Hmm.
as a sacrifice, and I think that is a very misguided view.
Hmm. Yeah. I like that. I mean, I don't like the misguided view. I like that that you cleared it up.
Mhm.
Okay. And I ordered your book.
Mm.
What
Thank you.
can you talk to us about it? Like what inspired you? I know you wrote about it in the book, but so people can hear because I know a few people out here bought it and they were hoping to see you at Lion Fight so you could autograph it for us. But I was
Yeah,
like, no, he's not going to be here. And they're like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, sadly, I wasn't there this time. It was really good to go out to Line Fight for Boston.
Yeah.
For it was number 69, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that was an amazing experience, and definitely thank Scott Kent for having us out. And it was great meeting you and the other gang. But the book was inspired because I wanted to write something that I wish I had known
Mhm.
um, before I came out to Thailand and before I had really started fighting regularly. If I had some of the information that I do now, I would have made different choices, and I think
Mhm.
my fighting career would have been more successful. So it was really a way to, sort of help out people that might be in a similar situation that I was in.
How long did it take you to write this and speak with all these different fighters and just get all your information? Because it's not something that you just wake up one morning and be like, "Yep, I'm burning this, and we're done, and it's over."
Yeah, I mean the actual work of it maybe took 4 or 5 months,
Oh.
but in order to get the information and to understand everything, it took me 3 or 4 years of being out here in Thailand. Um, and the repeated trips out here and fighting regularly to sort of really understand some of the dynamics of what was going on and the business side. But once I sort of sat down to do it, the writing process itself was relatively simple. I made an outline. I
Mhm.
more or less knew what I wanted to say. I talked about these issues a lot with foreigners in different circumstances. So it was very, very easy to talk about and to write.
Yeah, I think if people haven't purchased the book, they definitely should get it. It's a great information as far as what it is to be a fighter and getting into this world, or even just trying to understand what a fighter goes through and the importance of, if this is a career that you want to take, this is what you should know. Because I noticed, in the beginning, you talk about how, obviously in Thailand versus here, they start very young. And
Hmm.
here, people start very late in life. So,
Hmm.
it's very important that people understand when they should do it, and if they're doing it later in life, what they can expect. And by knowing what to expect, they're able to kind of like fast forward and get the information, get the knowledge to get there. Would you like to tell people where they can find your book?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty easy to access.
Mhm.
You can buy it off of Amazon. It is called "I'm Fighting in Thailand: A Guide to the Sport in the Motherland." So yeah, it's pretty easy to access, and you can get it either in print or as an ebook.
I would say get the print.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was so awesome just to get it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't wait. Seriously, it's like I'm driving to the shoots and I'm like, oh my gosh, I like yeah, pull over and I'm like reading it and trying to like, it's like they're interrupting my read. It's like, really? Like, I get it. You guys have to fight, but I need to read. So
Yeah.
awesome. Before we conclude with our interview, is there anything that you would like to share?
Uh, Not really. I just really appreciate you taking your time out to interview me, and I appreciate all the hard work you put into the sport, and I'm very excited to see you grow, and hope your personal career goes well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope to see you again here in the States. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I hope to talk to you very soon.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye. Thank you.